Hey guys, welcome back to another tutorial today. In today's video, we are going to learn how to make this beautiful sweetheart neckline bustier blouse that has a ruffle cape. If that is what you want to learn how to make for yourself from start to finish, just like the way it is on the screen, then keep watching this video to the very end and let's head straight to it. Firstly, we need your basic bodice front, half of it like so. And I'm going to be showing you the basic features. You have your chest line. Of course, I have my bust point line, I have my half length, okay, and then of course the length of my blouse. The next thing I'm going to do is to determine the depth or my neckline for the sweetheart neckline, okay. So I'm going to be marking 3 inches. This is optional. You mustn't use 3 inches. You want to use the neckline that is suitable for you. On the shoulder, you want to mark how much you want to use for your off shoulder. I will advise you don't go too deep and be using 2 inches. You can as well use 2 inches or 2.5. I'll go ahead and mark it, then I'll connect this 2 inches point to the neckline that we already marked previously. So this is what your pattern should look like at this point. Now you know that the whole of that part, we are cutting it out. Since we are cutting it out, we have to contour so it does not gap when we put it on. Now to mark your contour dart for the neckline, you're going to come in from any part of your neckline. You mark a straight line or rule a straight line to the bust point. Also, because I'm taking out that part, we also have to contour the shoulder part of it because there is actually not going to be any shoulder. It's the cape, which also went into the shoulder, but you have to contour it. So I marked a straight line from that point to my bust point. Now I'm going to be marking my bust arc, which is the distance between your bust point and your underbust. This pattern does not have an underbust, but of course you should know where your underbust is and the distance between your bust point to your underbust, you mark it. And on top of that bust arc is going to be sitting our contour dart intake, which is 1/2 inch. So after taking the 1/2 inch, you're going to be connecting to your neckline and back to the bust point line like so, or back to the bust point like so. At this point, if you haven't subscribed to this channel, please do well to subscribe. Click the bell notification icon so you'll be notified whenever I post lovely tutorials like this. You can go ahead to share this video to other platforms where they'll be needed. Be sure to like this video if this video has helped you so far. And also do not forget to watch other tutorials on this channel which will be very, very helpful to you. Now, this is what your pattern should look like at this very point. Now you see that we have a dart here, and the design we are recreating, that cape came sort of towards the center front. Is not as deep as the neckline, so it's not as deep as the dart. So I'm going to be marking from my center front on the waistline 1/2 inch. 1.5 inches. Sorry, I'm going to be connecting that 1.5 inches to my bust point, and then I'll go ahead to mark on the hemline 1.5 inches again. Then I'll go ahead to connect like so. The reason I'm marking this 1.5 inches so we'll get that V shape that this cape has on the blouse. Now I'm going to be transferring our dart to that point, and which is very simple. On that 1.5 inches mark, I'm going to be marking 1/2 inch on both sides, and I'll connect everything back to the bust point. Also for the hip dart or for the waist dart, we're going to be connecting back to the hip. I'm literally transferring the whole of that waist dart to this new part that we just marked so we can have a new dart, and I'll go ahead and eliminate the other one. Is no longer going to be needed. So you see I've redrawn my new dart, meaning there's no longer dart here. That dart does not exist. This is our new dart now. I'll get a fresh pattern paper and attach it by the side of my pattern like so. You want to notice that this pattern extended towards the top. Can you see I have a very big space at the top of my shoulder? Now from this end, from this part of my shoulder, I'm going to be marking 1 inch. I'll get my ruler and square an angled line upwards like so. I felt like the angle I took wasn't much, so I had to increase it. This angle effect is what is going to make that cape have that standing effect. Can you see the way the cape is standing from her shoulder? That angled effect is going to give you that standing effect. So on that line, I marked 3 inches. That is going to be the length of that cape. So I'm going to connect that 3 inches to that 1.5 inches where I withdrew the dart. At this point, this is what your pattern should look like. Now we are connecting from that 1 inch point at the shoulder to that point where we drew the dart, the 1.5 inches. Can you see? So we're going to be tracing out the whole of that cape. I'm going to trace it out and I'll show you guys. So I traced out the cape and this is what it looks like. Can you see it fits properly to the cape that we drew out? So I've traced out the cape and this is what it looks like. You want to go ahead and label the necessary parts. Can you see this is the part where the cape is going to be joining to the bodice? I did that. So after labeling, you cannot take out the additional pattern or the additional paper that you added to your foundation pattern. So now I'm going to start manipulating my dart. The first thing I'm going to do is to cut open the side bust dart. Please watch carefully. This part is very important because we have a lot of lines going on here. Now the next thing I'm going to do is to start closing up those contour darts and transferring the dart to the side bust dart, which I've already cut open. Do not worry about that part of the paper that ripped away. Of course, we are going to take it out. As you can see, the neckline went into that part, so it's going to go off. We already traced it out with the cape, so we don't need it in the actual bodies, the actual dress or in the actual blouse, please. So the neckline the line has broken. I'm going to redraw it so it aligns back, okay? So from here now, I'm going ahead to cut. Can you see the way I am cutting? This is the dart, the new dart, okay? And now look at the line that I am going to be cutting it all the way. Okay, let me close up this first. Now I'm cutting on the line, which is the line where we're going to be sewing in the cape for the front. Okay, that is the line we used in forming the bustier. Is the line where we are going to be sewing in the cape. That is the line we used to form our bustier. Can you see that? So the remaining part of the dart here, we are going to be cutting it out also. You have to smoothen out the bustier area so it doesn't look pointy, so it comes out very natural and nice. Now this is your pattern for the front. Can you see? It's actually very simple. This is your pattern for the front. And here is the cape, okay? So for that, you just have to go sew it like this. Don't worry, we are going to sew it, okay? Like you saw at the beginning, we are going to sew it. So for that ruffled effect, you're going to measure the length of this stuff and you multiply it by 3 to make a long strap. Do not worry, as we keep sewing, you'll see during the sewing tutorial, you understand better. Now this is the back. Okay, we've started for the back. We're going to determine the depth of our neckline for the back. I marked in 3 inches. Like I said, you can use whatever you want to use. Same thing we did for the front. I'll be marking 1 inch from this part of the armhole. And then I'll go ahead and connect that 1 inch to this point of the back. On that 3 inches mark, I will square a straight line. I noticed I didn't mark the 2 inches for the armhole at the back, but you can do that if you want, okay? You can do that. Now to contour the back from your center shoulder for the back, you're coming down by 3 inches or 2.5 inches, 3 inches. You square a line across that point. And from your center front, you go ahead to mark your bust apart measurement on that line that you squared. And from that point, you connect back to your waist dart. Thereby, you've recreated a new dart for your contour. I always do this. It's necessary you do this whenever you're having a deep cut for the back so it does not gap. This is actually not deep, but I just decided to do it since it's a tube bustier, okay? Okay, so this is what our back looks like. The next thing we're going to do now is to get a fresh pattern paper. Just like we did for the front, I'm going to get a fresh pattern paper and attach it towards this side. Always make sure that you have enough space at the up part of it along the shoulder side. Always make sure you have enough space, okay? So from that 1 inch point, I'm going to be marking an angle like so. I didn't check if the angle is same with the front, but I just eyeballed it. You can decide to check if it's same with the front. But if you cannot, just measure the front angle before you remove the whole of your pattern. So it's same thing with the back. So I just checked the length and it is same thing with that of the back. I have to make sure, of course, you have to make sure the length of that cape stuff is the same thing. And then we are connecting that cape to this point. Can you see? We'll go ahead and connect that point to this point of the back. So we'll trace out that cape, that back cape, we're going to trace it out. I'm going to have to trace out my back cape, and this is what it looks like. I labeled every necessary point. This is so important. You have to label every necessary point so you know where you're sewing into the blouse. Okay, you also where you know where the cape is going to start. You know that there is a part of the cape that looks like it's on top of the shoulder. You have to label to know that part. Everything you have to label. So I went ahead to remove the excess pattern, so we are left with our original or our foundation pattern. We'll go ahead now to start cutting. I have to cut this part. Definitely I'm going to cut out that very long thing that looks like it's a shoulder. We don't need it, okay? It's already in the cape, so we don't need it in the bodice. It's a tube blouse with a cape attached. So at this point, if you notice, I did not cut my dart according to my back contour. Did you notice? I did not cut my dart according to the back contour. At this point, I haven't even noticed it. So it was right at this point that I noticed that I did not cut the other side of the back according to the back contour. So I'll have to take it back and use my sellotape and hold it down so I can cut out the contour dart of the back properly. So I haven't taped it down. I'm going ahead now to cut it out properly. So this is what the back pattern looks like. I also went ahead to bring the front pattern. These are all the patterns for this blouse design, including the cape. Can you see? This is the front, this is the back, and here are the cape. So let's head straight to the sewing. Very interesting. I so much enjoyed this process, though I did it at night and I had to sacrifice my sleep, but I so much enjoyed the sewing process of this very particular blouse. Now I'm cutting off the center front. I'm marking my notches to know where the bust point is, the waist length, and of course everything. I went ahead to cut out all the pieces with their lining. These are all the pieces with the lining I'm showing you guys. I went ahead to cut out all the pieces with lining. These are for the front. I also did the same thing for the back. So I'll go ahead to join the lining together to give them a neat, finish, a neat finish. So these are the fronts. I've joined the lining, and here are the back pieces. Okay, make sure you mark your notch. At some point, I was confused as which part of the back should be the upper part or the lower part or the hem of the back, but I had to figure it out because I marked my notches. So these are all the pieces for the front and back. Now, for the cape, which is actually the most interesting part of this tutorial, you want to listen very attentively. You have an inner cape. You can use another color or the same color of your fabric. It's sort of an inner cape. Okay, so I brought out one from the front cape and one from the back cape. You're going to be joining them together at the shoulder. Can you see that's the shoulder part? You're going to be joining them at the shoulder part. I have to bring back the pattern to make sure that I am in line. What I'm doing is in line. I have to bring back my pattern to make sure I'm not mixing up anything. I don't even discard my pattern until I am done sewing a particular design. Okay, I don't discard the pattern. So since I'm in line, I'll go ahead to sew it along the shoulder like so, and I'll come back and show you guys. So I've sewn it along the shoulder. And did you see I attached an interface with boning? Make sure your boning is in the center so it does not obstruct when you are sewing. Okay, I attached boning on the sides and also on that shoulder part. Now I'll go ahead to take the fabric itself and cover that up, okay? Like I said, make sure your boning, you do not sew it where it's going to obstruct your sewing. Also take the lining and cover the other part of it. So I'll go ahead and sew this now and I'll come back and show you guys. At this point, I was getting so exhausted. I didn't know this cape stuff is going to take as much brain work and energy like it's doing. So I'm done sewing it and I gave it a nice press and this is what it looks like. Can you see? So for that very long strap I told you, you can multiply the whole length. Okay, I'm going to explain better now. If you notice, you find out that the ending part of this long strap is smaller, okay, than the beginning part of it. It has that kind of curved shape. It's smaller. Can you see? This is smaller than the beginning part of it because that ending, the ending part is going to be at your waist. So you want to take a measurement of around this and multiply it by 3 or by 4, depending on how full you want your ruffled design to be. Okay, so that bigger part of it is actually the center. So you're going to be sewing this like so. Okay, you sew this like so and then turn it over. Do not worry, I'll still come back and show you guys so you understand. Then you keep on sewing to the other end and you sew up like that again. If you want that puffy effect, okay, if you want that puffy effect on your ruffles, you can get a tool, layer a tool and put it inside, especially at the center. Especially at the center, okay, then you can now sew and close it up while sewing. So you can have that puffy effect for your ruffled design. I don't know if you get me. So now I'm done sewing that, the stuff we're using for the ruffled effect. So you're going to be attaching it like so. Okay, after you've run your gathered stitch, you're going to be attaching it like so. First, run a gathered stitch on it. Mark a notch where your center is. Run a gathered stitch on it. So I'm done sewing it and this is what it looks like. You can make your ruffled bigger. My fabric was not enough. You can make the length of your ruffled effect very big, just like the one Vicky James is wearing. You can make your ruffled effect very big, but my fabric was not enough. So then you can use a bias to close up that underneath that I was showing you. Now I've brought my center front, okay, and on one side of the center front, that very part where the neckline is starting, you have to pin it down like so. Make sure you're putting the front of the cape to the front of the dress. Then I'll use my pin. Use your pin to hold everything down first. So this is what it looks like. Then the other part that completes that part of the front, you also have to put it down. You also have to hold it down. Use your pin to hold it. Can you see? I'm trying to make sure everything is in alignment. Already you marked these notches on your fabric. So make sure your notches are aligning as you're using your pin to hold it down. If your notches does not align, it might affect the fit of your garment. So make sure your notches align. So this is what this part is looking like. We've done for the front. So I'll go ahead to also do the same thing for the back. You want to get your center back for that side. Okay, you want to get your center back for that side. Right side facing right side. You will now pin it. You're pinning on the wrong side of the bodies of the tube. So the other part that completes the back, you also go ahead to pin it. down. I'll go ahead now and take it to my sewing machine and sew it up. Okay, and I also sew the other side to complete the blouse. Then I'll come back and show you guys. I also stitch up the side with the measurement that I have, and I'll come back and show you guys. So you see this part, I didn't do it well, it's rough. It's supposed to be sewn inwards, like you're supposed to turn your lining properly, like the way you turn the hem. But I actually forgot. I'll correct it when I'm doing the other side, and I will show you guys what I'm actually talking about. Now I'm done sewing it. Can you see that part I told you guys about? I've corrected it. I've sewn it inwardly like a hem. And you see this part, I'll just use a bias to turn up that part, okay? So make sure you sew yours to look like that so that it's neat. It has a neat finish, okay? So this is what the blouse looks like. Please do well to sew yours to be like that part, okay? This is what the blouse looks like. Now for this very part, there's a part of the blouse that looks like the tube part of it or whatever, the shoulder part of it is hanging out. You just have to take your needle and thread and place this on the cape and then tack it down. Tack it in a way that it will not show on top of the cape, okay? Just tack it inwards so that it's not going to show on top of the cape. Can you see it's not showing? So do that for the rest of the 4 sides. Do that for all the sides. And by the time you're done, this is what you should be having as your blouse. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in my next tutorial. Bye.